Hi everyone, Don Giannatti here, lighting-essentials.com and project52prosystem.com. Two places for serious photographers to go and catch up on a lot of stuff that's going on. My ideas about the business, which have been quite successful for a lot of photographers, so I recommend you check it out. Today, I want to tell you about the title of it is The 5 Biggest Mistakes I Made When I Was Starting Out. And I made some doozies, you know. I love to talk about what I've done over 5 decades. I've been a photographer for 5 decades, 50 years, 51 years exactly. And I have made my share of faux pas, shall we say. But I've also had a lot of success as well. So sometimes I like to think that the mistakes that we made lead us to the place where we make fewer of them. I tell my students that you'll learn more from every screw up than you'll learn from everything that you do really well. So don't be afraid of screwing up. Do it more often. The more you do, the more you learn. I did some specific things, some general things, some things that looking back make no sense at all now, but at the time they seemed like they would work. If you're not paying attention to your market, if you're not paying attention to what's going on in your business, your industry, as they call it, the industry. I'm not really convinced that being a photographer is an industry. It's more like a trade or a craft than an industry, but you know, that's what they call it. But if you're not paying attention, you can miss a lot. The mistakes I'm going to talk about are not like the time I loaded 40 sheets of 4x5 film backwards and then took a 3-day trip through Colorado shooting wonderfully beautiful landscapes that were of course shot on the backside of 4x5 film. I'm going to talk about the time that I left the ISO on the meter at 1600 and was shooting Kodachrome 25, and some critical shots went by before something in my brain went, hey, you know, when you're shooting Kodachrome 25, shooting at f16 at an 800th of a second doesn't really make sense here, Don. So those things, hey, that's just technical stuff and it happens. So let's start the countdown. Number 1, missing the market. When I first got started in photography, my main motivation was I wanted to shoot girls. I wanted to shoot fashion. So I started learning about fashion and the width of belts and how high the hair would be and who made what shoe and all of that stuff. And I started buying French Vogue and Italian Vogue and British Vogue and New York or American Vogue and South American Vogue. So a great little bookstore over in La Jolla called the Bird Rock bookstore, no longer there. But I'd go over there and drop $100 in a month. I'd go over like once every 6 weeks and just splurge. And I learned about Annie and I learned about Sarah and I learned about Patrick DeMarchelier and Arthur Elgort and all those people, and I wanted to be those. I wanted to hang around with Polly Mellon and I wanted to photograph Christy and Kathy and the Highboard girls and go to Africa and shoot. That was a big thing, you know. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, which is, you know, I know a lot of people think it's the fashion mecca of the Great Southwest, but it's actually the fashion mecca of nowhere. There's no fashion here at all. All we could do here was off the rack crap, stuff from boutiques and occasionally a catalog or whatever. Moving to New York City wasn't an option at the time. I wish it had been, but it wasn't at the time. I did eventually move to New York and was there for about 18 months to 2 years, flying back for 6 weeks, coming back to Phoenix for a week and going back to New York. And I can't tell you how draining that became. So my focus was on fashion, and I lived in Phoenix, Arizona. So the disconnect was wide. And I decided literally overnight, that was it. Wasn't going to do that anymore. Not in Phoenix. I still had fashion clients in Chicago and New York that I did work for, but in Phoenix, And I had to work in Phoenix because I knew we weren't going to permanently move to New York. I had to have some business here. So that's what we did. So I stopped shooting fashion here locally and changed the portfolio. I spent 4 or 5 months building my product, shooting 8x10, 4x5. I did product, I did some food, I did a lot of still life. I was doing a lot of work for direct clients. I started going back to the agencies, and I got at the agencies I got this sort of thing. Hey, nice book. You shoot fashion, right? Wow, I didn't know you shot still life, but we don't do much fashion here. Hey, where'd the girls go? So it didn't matter what I showed them. They saw my brand. I stuck with it too long. I wasn't going to be able to change it overnight. And so I began a long and torturous 5 years it took to change my brand in Phoenix. And I'm sure there's still a lot of photographers in Phoenix go, oh yeah, Don Giannatti, yeah, he shot fashion, didn't he? Yeah. Number 2 is confusing your brand. Number 3 is confusing a job description with some sort of mystical God-given talent. I thought art directors and editors and designers and creative directors, I thought, oh man, these people are just the most visually literate people around. I need to come up to their level. I was intimidated like crazy by art directors and graphic designers. I thought, man, what I don't know, they've already forgotten. I mean, these guys are brilliant, and I'm, when I go and show them my work, I'm inferior. I'm not up to their level. That's what they do. And it held me back for several years. I mean, it was a tough thing for me. I struggled with the self-esteem. I was a self-taught photographer. I learned by assisting. I learned photography on my own. Then I started being an assistant for photographers in town. Then I moved to LA and I assisted in LA. Then I moved back to Phoenix and opened my studio. So I never had that long, arduous art training that so many photographers had. And I was a little embarrassed by it. It felt like I was a fraud. And one summer, I had a really, really tough gig with a really tough art director. And after that month-long ordeal, I realized that this top-notch art director, this guy that was highly sought after, was a fraud. He just copied everything. Everything he brought me to do, it was like, okay, well, here's this cool brochure from Minneapolis. We're going to do this. So here's this cool thing from, right at the time, it was Austin and Minneapolis were the two design centers, as you wish, or as you say. And I just realized that, wow, this guy was doing nothing but mailing it in, copying it from somebody else. And I realized that we're all frauds in our own eyes. Nobody's special. There's great art directors, there's great creative directors, fantastic designers who don't do that. So I'm not saying all of them do that at all. What I'm saying is that gentleman did, and that gentleman made me reassess how I felt about art directors, creative directors, etc. And after that, I saw them as peers. They were just as lost or just as sure of themselves at any one moment that I was. And that changed a lot, changed my life when I realized that I did have something to say, and I was going to say it. Number 4, putting all my eggs in one very flimsy basket. I got something for you. That's what he said. I got something for you. A deal so big, it was almost unbelievable. A shoot so enormous in scope that it could only be the client I needed. It could only be that saving grace. A deal so magnificent I would never have to look for a client again. Who could pass up a deal like that? Especially when you have, $1,200 in the bank and $76,000 in receivables, which happened a lot when I was doing ad agency work, which is one reason why I don't much anymore. So I embraced that big deal. And it went great for nearly a year. Enough time for me to get lazy about the portfolio. I got lazy about marketing. I got lazy about my direct mail. I'd been in the workbook. I was like, well, I could be in the workbook. That's $7,000. That's right, $7,000 in 1985. $7,000 to be one page in the workbook. And I had previously been in there with a double page spread, $15,000. So $7,000 plus to be in it. And I'm like, no, I won't. I got this job. I got this guy. This guy's keeping me busy. And then he didn't. And I had no marketing out there. It's too late to get into the workbook. I had ignored my direct mail. I had ignored all my clients that I had built up. And I was in a damn hole. I was in a really, really big damn hole. Plus, the bastard left, not only just left me hanging with no work, he left me hanging with $30,000 worth of unpaid bills that he owed. And I had to pay part of that. So the printer here in town to which I had signed off on was very understanding and worked with me, and I didn't end up being totally screwed, but I could have. I could have been royally screwed. You can't put all your eggs in one basket and then expect that basket's going to hold forever. You've got to keep on marketing, even when you've got that deal that's so good. How could it possibly not be the saving grace of your life? Probably because nothing will be that. You'll just do it up. It took me 24 months to dig back out and get some clients again and get that steady thing again. It took me like two and a half months to start to breathe again. It was terrible. And the last one was letting a competitor own me. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but it happened to me. I had this guy. He set up like a fucking apartment in my brain. He lived there. He put like a couch in there and lived there. He was putting in a pool. I mean, he lived there. I didn't know the guy. I mean, I probably see him at the lab and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Whatever. But I don't know. I looked at every job that I got that he used to do or that he did as stealing one from him. And I'm sure he felt the same about me. And that was really, really stupid. So much time was focused on this competitor. So much time was focused on, oh, he's better than I am. Oh, he's getting this client, and why aren't they calling me? And all of that stupid, obsessive bullshit. One day I'm having lunch downtown. He comes in by himself. He sees me sitting. He says, "Hey, can I sit with you?" And I'm like, "Sure." He sits down and he told me how much he liked my work. Told me he's going through a rough patch. Told him if he needed anything, let me know. He came to my studio anytime if he needed to. And that was the day he moved out of my head. When I realized that he was just another guy like me, trying to make a living, trying to keep the doors open, trying to keep the rain out. Just another guy. And I don't want to. I be great end of the story. And we became great friends. No, we didn't. We didn't become great friends. But I don't know if there was that animosity anymore. I can tell you it wasn't on my side. I doubt that it was on his. And when you let something like that go, it's so freeing. You have so much more time. There's so much more things to think about that are interesting, other than this vain competition with somebody who is either not interested in you at all or has their own shit going on and think you're doing the same thing to them that they're doing to you. Look, being a creative person is tough. I've been a creative person my whole life, even when I was much younger. There was a time when I was much younger. Yeah. Back when we used to chase off the dinosaurs out back of the studio, get on those mastodons and ride them like that. Was great. Great times. When I was much younger, where I worked a regular job, and that was fine. But I still did creative things every moment I wasn't doing that regular job. And being a creative person is tough. It's tough on your psyche, it's tough on your pocketbook, it's tough on everything. But it isn't tough on your soul. It's the only thing that lets your soul breathe. I just can't imagine not being creative or in this creative business. Even though these are 5 big mistakes I've had. I laugh. My wife laughs and says, "Well, this could be like chapter 1 of 15 chapters of 5 terrible mistakes." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, you're right. Let's not dwell on those things. Shall we? We'll move on." A lot of mistakes, but lots and lots of good stuff. And what a great way to make a living. I've just had a blast. So that's my little video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you take something from it, other than, gee, Don's a big screw up too. But even if you do that, that's great. Love having you here. Listen, if you like what I'm doing, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell, and I'll just annoy the crap out of you as I post more and more stuff. And have a great day. Links to my websites are down below in the description, and I'll see you next time.